Kyle Klingman with Track Wrestling all the way out to Baltimore, Maryland. Brand new apartment, and we have someone who has advanced women's wrestling for the good. She was with Beat the Streets, New York, also wrestled at Menlo, countless junior national teams, countless times helping women make weight. It is Jacque Davis. How are you, Jacque?
I'm super good. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us about moving to Baltimore. This is, what, 2 days old?
Yeah, 2 days old, brand new, a little baby move. We just made our shift. So my fiance is Walter Pethelman, and he's a badass. He's a badass, and he just graduated from MIT with his master's in business. And got this really incredible job in Baltimore. So we just made our shift, made a big move from Boston, and literally moved into our apartment 2 days ago. So we're half in boxes. I'm surrounded by some of them right now that you can't see. Um, and yeah, apartment's brand new, smells fresh.
How do you like it so far there?
I love it, but I also, to be completely honest, haven't explored a lot. I'm like, Whole Foods because I'm an angry person if I don't have food, and Target because toilet paper is also important. That's kind of my exploration so far.
There's a great theme with a lot of these interviews with women's wrestlers. A lot seem to come from California, and that was the case for you. How did you first get involved in wrestling?
Oh yeah, West Coast, Best Coast. By the way, I'm just gonna throw that out there. I started when I was 12. I joined my middle school wrestling team, and I'm recognizing now that I'm older that middle school wrestling or middle school organized sports isn't always a thing. So I feel pretty fortunate. My area had a full-on middle school season, a bunch of middle school teams, a league, state, all that kind of stuff, which was cool. I had no experience. Nobody in my family ever wrestled. I grew up doing gymnastics. So by the time I joined wrestling, I was probably somewhere around 6 or 7 years into gymnastics. And I was bored of like the hair gel that made your head like a helmet and the glitter and the leotards. And I was always very physical. So when I heard about the tryouts, I was like, I'm there. I need to be there. I think like I also remember kind of being like, I want to join the team. And people all around me being like, yeah, you're not going to make it. It's not going to happen. You're not tough enough. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll see you there. And so I joined and I fell in love with it.
And that lit a fire? I mean, did that fire keep going all through high school?
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like my middle school coach was a pretty great middle school coach in the fact that like he made it very, very fun. And, I did gymnastics. So I felt like I think that I was pretty athletic then and pretty strong. And so what's also very fun is winning. And even though I was going up against mostly boys, they were still like seventh grade, sixth grade boys that are going through puberty. They're kind of like just not super, they're all kind of pudgy and haven't figured it out yet. And I was like, I'm a beast, like I was like seeing success early and I thought I was all tough. So I had a lot of fun. Um, and I'm just like I'm a very kinesthetic learner, so that like hands-on part was really really great for me. Um, and then I also just had I think like I guess not to get too personal, but like I had an upbringing where I had my father was an addict, and there wasn't a lot of consistency or structure at home, and I really really was like hungry for that. So when I went into wrestling, it was a really refreshing taste of consistency and structure. And so I just wanted to have more of it and more of it. So high school is where I went, and from there is college too.
Did not having structure help you later as a coach, being able to connect with girls?
Um, so I got involved with Beat the Streets because of it. Actually, my college, I had two really incredible college coaches. One was Lee Allen, who I had from my freshman to my junior year, and he was a two-time Olympian, one time in freestyle and one time in Greco. And then my senior year, I had Marcy Van Duzen, who was on our second women's Olympic team. And she was also incredible. And both of them really shaped a lot of like my formative years. But I remember having a conversation with Marcy, who was like, I was talking to her about some of my upbringing and my experience, and she knew about Beat the Streets, and she thought that it would be an organization that would resonate with me, that I would connect with. So yes, I guess is a long-winded answer to, yeah, it makes me feel like I can connect with the community that I coach. But also as I've gotten older, I've recognized like, yeah, there are experiences that are similar, but each individual is so different. And so like, I learn something brand new every single day from the community that I get to work with.
And learning about you, I think that's the one operative word, is that you're able to connect with athletes. How are you able to do that in a unique way for every athlete?
I mean, yeah, that is a really good question. I hope, well, one, I hope that I'm doing that. I hope that I'm connecting with each person uniquely, because I don't know if that's true. Two, I guess what I'm trying to do when I'm coaching or mentoring is recognizing that it's not a one-way street. And so like, it's not just me like trying to impart like knowledge and skills and technique and what nutrition and health and wellness. It's also the reverse of that. And I think that when I walk into a wrestling room, or when me and my girls get to walk into a wrestling room together, or a space to learn and grow together, it's really helpful for me that it's really helpful for me to know that, what's the right way to say this? I think it's just a healthy thing to know that we're all learning together, and that we're never done, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So hopefully what was making it unique is that each person understands that they're teaching me just as much as I'm hopefully teaching them.
With women's wrestling still making a push and trying to get more mainstream, there's a lot of front end work just to not just wrestle, but you're breaking barriers along the way. How do you balance that, knowing that you have to push through and you have to lay some groundwork, but also coach wrestling, which is the most important part?
Yeah, you said that pretty perfectly. You have to fight for just the space. So balancing between creating the space and also coaching girls. So I think one of the biggest things that maybe I'll take this into a challenge. One of the biggest challenges I've experienced with like creating the space is not just trying to create the space, like convince administrators or parents or teachers that there's a space for girls wrestling, but also to convince the girls themselves that there's a space for girls wrestling, because all of these girls, a lot of the girls that I work with have encountered, regardless of the state or the city or the region, automatically write it off as a sport they're not allowed to do, because of the people who are their mentors and guide them. Their parents have never seen it happen before. Most likely they didn't grow up with a lot of women in that space. Their principals also probably didn't grow up with a lot of women in that space. Their teachers, their counselors, their, grandparents, whoever is helping raise them. And so they don't even get the opportunity to say no to it. They just don't even get offered the sport from the beginning. And then when they do get offered, they're like, oh, I'm not strong enough, or I'm not big enough, or I'm not tall enough, fast enough. So I think that it's a balance of trying to convince educators, administrators, as well as girls what's possible. And then the wrestling comes after that.
So I'm sure you've seen hundreds of girls succeed in this sport, but how long does it take to get them to cross that threshold and believe? I'm sure you've had girls that want to drop out and you've stuck with them. How do you see that through to make sure they see the value of the sport long term?
Yeah, a genuine connection with them, knowing that each person's journey, I guess, each girl needs to know that their journey is different from somebody else's, and that regardless of why they're in this space, they're honored for it. Right. So some girls, we were talking about Michaela Beck earlier before we started, right? Some girls are like, I want to be on an Olympic team and I want to do it now. And that's awesome. But some other girls are like, I just want friends and I don't have any at school. So here's a place I can have them. And some girls are like, I was told that I was too big, you know, like that I needed to be doing, I don't know. Some girls are like 5'9" and 190 pounds or something, and they're told they're too big for any other sport. So maybe they're wanting to lose weight or feel body confident. And I guess seeing them through their journey is recognizing that their ending point is at completely different places depending on the girl. Right. So if a girl is like, I'm here to make friends, and all of a sudden she's like leading conversations and teaching technique and playing games with people, that's growth and she's on her journey. If a girl's like, I just want to feel more confident in my body, and all of a sudden she went from wearing long sleeve t-shirts and baggy sweatpants to a short sleeve t-shirt and some like tights, we're like, sweet, she's on her journey. And if someone's like, I want to be making an Olympic team and I'm going to do it no matter what, and they're coming in early and they're staying late and they're placing at tournaments, sweet, they're on their journey.
You talked about Michaela Beck. Her father is Scott Beck, and he said to make sure to mention all of the times you helped girls make weight in the sauna or whatever else it was, and maybe some missed flights too. What's he talking about there?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. He's probably talking about Ronnie Green. Maybe he's talking about Ronnie Green. We've just had, it's been a million and two experiences with like health and wellness with girls and weight management with girls. And there was an experience maybe my first year in New York where it was a weird year where like the Pan Ams for maybe it was the cadets, was happening. UWW was hosting it before the actual qualifier in the United States. So to justify it, USA Wrestling was like, cool, we'll just put out an application and people can apply to be on our national team. And I was like, wait, people can apply to be on the national team? So I just was like, I'm gonna fill in a lot of Beat the Streets girls for these slots. And turns out two of them got on the team. And one of them one of them ended up winning the Pan Am championships. Like, it was super cool. She crushed it. The other one, she missed her flight. She had never been out of New York City. She's from the Bronx. Her parents had never left the Bronx. So just to get her a visa to go to Brazil, to get her a passport, like I had to go everywhere around New York City with her and her parents to make sure it could happen. And then she missed a flight to get out there, which made her miss a whole day of like weight management and acclimation out there. And by the time she got there, she was the tiniest weight class. I think it was like 44 kilos, like my pinky, right? Like, but she was also a very lean little girl. So if she missed this whole day of acclimation, it was going to make it hard for her. And she ended up getting there, and we spent, not just me, the whole coaching staff, right? Spent all time with her, like running, biking, in this facility that was kind of outdoors, kind of indoors, like working out upstairs, all this stuff. Got her on the scale, and she was like off by like 0.1 or something. And they're like, we'll give you 5 minutes. I'm like, 5 minutes? Oh my God. So we like took her upstairs. She's like running, and she had like a weave in. So she's like, cut my weave out. So I'm like cutting her weave out, and like people are looking, no one knows what to think, and get her back downstairs. And she like still like didn't budge, 0.1 over. Came down to a decision between all the referees and all the coaches. One referee was like, no. So it kind of nixed the whole thing. And for like shits and giggles, we put her back on the scale like 10 minutes later, and she was like flat on. I was like, oh, if only we had 10 minutes for her to finish her sweat, you know, like, so, well, that was one instance, but there are a bajillion like that, I guess.
I guess it has to be rewarding, Beat the Streets New York work, just thinking in hindsight, all that you've been through and all the people you've influenced. Does it feel good knowing how much of a difference you've made?
it's super rewarding to be able to, I keep saying this, it's like a broken record, but like it's super rewarding to be able to work with these girls. Um, but because I feel like it's a two-way road. I feel like every single day that I get the chance to work with them and their parents and guardians and the community and the coaches that I'm in, I learn and grow and hopefully I'm becoming better, just as much as I hope they are too. It's really exciting for me now when I'm bringing the next generation of Beat the Streets girls from Boston or from Providence, or when I was still in New York, to tournaments, and we're seeing former girls who are competing at college, and like then these college girls are coming up and they're talking to these Beat the Streets girls like about their program and how they can get into it and what's cool about it. It's really rewarding for me to see like that regardless of the city that they're in, because they're part of an organization that they recognize, they all come together and support each other like one family. Yeah, it's incredibly rewarding to see how much they grow, and how, I don't know, I just get impressed every single day with the fact that they never stop growing. They keep doing more and more impressive things every single day.
How rewarding is it to see this How She Wrestles movement?
Oh my gosh. Shout out to Julia Salata. Shout out to all the senior women who are doing videos. Shout out to Wrestle Like a Girl. And for everybody, like all of the guys that did the matches and wore Wrestle Like a Girl singlets, shout out to everybody, because it's great to see people unifying over one message.
You had a powerful one on your Instagram. That's where I saw it. How much thought and time did it take to articulate that message?
So honestly, I was asking Julia, who I love, by the way, she's one of my favorite humans. I was asking Julia Salata, I'm like, hey, like, is there, one topic we're all talking about, or like, is there something like a structure I should be following? And she's like, no, like, we just want to make sure that it's coming from everybody's heart. And if it's meaningful and powerful, it'll be powerful to everybody. I'm like, cool, no pressure, So I kept trying to think about like things that there are so many things I feel like I personally struggle and battle with within wrestling, but like it's allowed me to recognize how I struggle with it in everyday life, in business, in male dominated spaces, in like just my confidence in general, how I interact with other women. So I feel like wrestling's the conduit, right? It's allowed me to see that. And ultimately what I came down to is like credibility. It took me like, I don't know, it took me maybe a few hours to like sit down and try and figure out how to say it. And I debated a lot about how I was saying it, because frankly, I was nervous. I was nervous to put it out because I didn't want misinterpretation about the message, right? I didn't want a finger pointing or blame going on any male coach who's ever coached me or any female coach who's ever coached me, because that's not what it was about. I think that every single person that I've ever been fortunate enough to like lead me and teach me are incredible people. But I've also learned a lot lately about like this good bad binary, right? That you can be a good person and still have things that you were taught you don't know are bad or are not equitable. So I think it came down to like, oh crap, I am also somebody who's perpetrating some kind of not great things, and when did I really learn this? Like, when did I learn that, like that going on a women's college team was going to be weak, or people were going to be soft, or it was going to be filled with drama? I think that was the origin of it. That's where Julia and I started talking. We're like talking about our experience going to college and what our first thought processes was. And I was like, yeah, I thought the same thing, but was that my thought or was that somebody else's thought? And that's really what I spent a few hours trying to digest, and came down to I guess what I spoke about.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on the struggles? Because you really did dive into some really interesting topics. Could you elaborate on what some of the struggles were and what maybe the solution is to overcoming those?
Yeah, you mean the struggles of like welcoming other women to spaces, or?
Yeah, I think that was an important topic. And then you just had some interesting things just on that that dichotomy of being a wrestler, but also maybe the public perception of what a wrestler looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that some of the struggles for me when I was first joining, some of them came from myself, but I also, again, I don't know when or where I was taught some of these things. So I first joined wrestling, I told you earlier, because some kid, like, I thought it looked very fun. I was pretty physical. To be honest, I got in a little scuffles sometimes. I could use an outlet, right? I didn't have a lot of structure at home. This was a great place for it. But also, people told me I couldn't do it, right? I was like, okay, I can't do it, but Johnny over here is picking his nose. What makes you think he can do it? He's not even paying. He's facing the wall. Why do I have to do an extra push-up, but Johnny can just stand there and do this all day, right? So I think that you're right. There's like the interpretation, this like, what does a wrestler actually look like? When I met people and I said I wrestled, they're like, you don't look like a wrestler. I'm like, okay, but I am. Um, I think that the big struggle, one of the largest that I was speaking about in the video, was this idea of having to prove myself and prove that I belonged. And that it was never outwardly said. And for some girls, that is the experience, right? Some girls go into a space and it's for sure like an outwardly said thing that they're not really wanted there. For me, it was more felt, right? That there were like, you know, maybe extra runs or extra push-ups, or I was being paid attention to more, and not like the positive coaches paying attention to me way. So I was trying to blend in and outwork everybody around me to just show that I belonged and I wasn't there for the wrong reasons. The conversations about, you know, we don't want our team to be a joke, or we don't need dating, or we don't, you know, like we don't need the distractions that come along with having girls in a space, that I don't know that male teammates really got that conversation or felt that being implied on them. And then ultimately I became the asshole, you know, like, because anytime I'm like, okay, cool, I'm going to fight for my space here and for the rights for girls to be in this space, and that anybody can be here. Like, we had like 7 deaf kids on my team, I'm pretty sure, in high school, right? And then me plus like maybe a couple other girls the first couple years. You know, I'm like, cool, like everybody belongs, there's a space for everybody. But then like, if new girls would come, or I would go train with girls into other places, I was being very exclusionary. You know, like, you're not wearing the right clothes, or you know, like, you're not running fast enough, or don't complain about things, or don't, you know, everything that you do is a reflection of us. And instead of being like, let me help you with this, or here's an easy way to make this transition, or yeah, that girl's bathroom is never unlocked because coach forgets to unlock it, but I'll show you a new one, right? Became kind of a bully on it, I think. But that's also trickled into the rest of my life, right? Like, feeling slightly threatened in spaces where I'm like, I'm trying to earn my right to the top of a business place, and like other women make me feel sort of threatened, instead of being like, hey, we're collaborators, we can get higher together if we work together. So that's kind of, I guess, what I was thinking.
What will it take to get to the point where we're just talking about women's wrestling and we're not talking about where you came from and what was your hardship to get through the sport? I mean, how far away are we from that conversation where we're just talking about the sport?
Kyle, that is a great question. I think that so I don't know if this is right, but I always say that like a lot of our issues rise with the fact that our women's wrestling pool is smaller than men's wrestling, just because it's younger, and that as more women come through and go through the collegiate program, or graduate from high school and want to start giving back and getting involved, not just coaching wise, right, but in the business of the sport, as well as executive directors for places, CEOs, as EDs and ADs places, you know, like then some of these things might change. And that could take time. But I think there's like, it's bigger than that, actually. It's also like re-educating us women that came through about how to also be inclusive. Because if we're coming through, but we're just duplicating the same kind of things that we were taught, then it's just a cycle all over again, you know? So I don't know how long it's going to take.
Well, let's end with this. What are you going to do for fun now that you're in Baltimore? What's the next step for you?
So I'm working on a couple projects with Wrestle Like a Girl, and a college festival. It's pretty tough right now for COVID. At least for me, I didn't do college visits. I'm very lucky. It worked out for me. I ended up at Menlo and I loved it, but I know that that is not the route to go, just blindly showing up to a school the first day. So right now I'm actually working on a really great project with Julia Salata and Sally Roberts and Taylor O'Donnell. So like a week-long women's wrestling college festival, to kind of like combat this issue where like girls can't go to colleges and visit, and college coaches can't go to tournaments and do some active recruiting. So we're just trying to find the middle ground. And these college coaches are going to lead these seminars where they're going to talk about where to even start your college process, or like how to manage money on campus, or if you're a girl that's never wrestled on an all women's team before, like that's a big transition. What does that even look like? So that is one major thing I'm running, or I'm helping with. August 17th to the 21st. It's going to be super cool. I'm hoping to get involved with Beat the Streets Baltimore in some capacity. And I'm doing some professional development. I'm taking a class through Johns Hopkins that I'm pretty pumped about. That's my plans right now. So.
And I think I forgot to mention, I think you started the Gotham City tournament too, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I did. I mean, with a lot of help from a bunch of people in New York City. Shout out Ken Bigley if he's listening at all, because he's the man. Runs like the whole PSAL and makes some serious magic happen. Also one of my major mentors there. But yeah, it started as a tiny tournament in Brooklyn at Wingate High School with like less than 100 girls, and maybe 2 of them were from out of the city, and then got up to like almost 600 girls from all over the country and all over the world, which is really cool to see it grow. And Emma Randall is now, she took over it and is crushing it.